I'm Jamie Lavin. I lead the local infrastructure hub for Bloomberg Philanthropies, and today's session is brought to you by our amazing partners at the United States Conference of Mayors and Results for America. Today, we're really excited to discuss how you and your city can prepare and prioritize projects that are a good fit for the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund financing. It's a big pot of money. We've all been waiting anxiously for these opportunities to open, and the door is finally there, and we want to make sure that you're well positioned. This funding can be used to make investments in community infrastructure, green workforce development, and public health through 3 programs: the National Clean Investment Fund, the Clean Communities Investment Accelerator, and Solar for All. Each program provides critical support for municipalities making investments in clean energy and reducing greenhouse gas emissions. This is the first in a series of GGRF, Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund webinars that we're going to be doing. We're going to be hosting follow-up sessions to dig in deeper on each of these programs in the coming months. So keep your eye out for NCIF in October, CCIA in December, and Solar for All in early 2025. And I just want to let you know there's a lot of acronyms here. There's a lot of different programs, and our goal today is to unpack for you which one you should be focused on for your community and for your kind of project. So to try to reduce some of the anxiety that might be coming with this big pot of money. Today, we're going to be joined by city officials and federal agency leaders to provide more details about the GGRF eligibility criteria broadly and eligible project types. As always, like I said, we want this to be interactive. Please start telling us, what are you thinking? How do you think you might want to access this money? Where are you in the process? Do you have something to add to the pipeline, or you're just getting started and you want to learn more about these programs? Please share your questions in the chat. We'll build in lots of time for Q&A. And now I want to welcome our first speaker. We have John Lucy, who's Senior Advisor to the White House Office of Intergovernmental Affairs for Implementation. And thank you for joining us today, John. The floor is yours.
Jamie, thank you so much for that warm welcome. It is great to be with you all today. Hope everyone is doing well and have a lovely weekend as we come back. Again, my name is John Lucy, and I serve in the White House Office of Intergovernmental Affairs, working closely with the Inflation Reduction Act implementation team. And I just want to start by saying I know how busy each of you are, how packed your calendars are each day, and the fact that you've made the time to more deeply engage with the opportunities presented by the Investing in America agenda for your communities is just an incredible signal of your leadership, and how much I appreciate, again, not only you all taking the time to be on this call, but those with the local infrastructure hub for continuing to be such helpful navigators. These programs are new, they are often complex, and we're seeing that the clean energy economy is here and that these efforts are really worth it. So briefly, just in my few minutes of remarks here, I wanted to do just 2 things: briefly ground you in the IRA, how it works, and set the stage for what opportunities like the GGRF and direct pay are and why they matter for you. And then I'll hand the baton to a few great experts from the federal family, as well as others on the call today, to continue to paint that picture. But as we go through the rest of today's discussion, I'll encourage each of you to kind of keep in mind 3 questions. Which priorities of yours in direct pay and the greenhouse gas reduction funds help you bring to life? Which stakeholders, both internal and external, need to be at the table for you to do this well? And then 3, what can the administration do to help you succeed? The IRA is the biggest climate investment the world has ever seen. And through an incredible mixture of grant programs, tax credits, and financing mechanisms, it invests in everything from clean energy production, clean vehicles and buildings, advanced manufacturing, pollution and carbon reduction, resilience, agriculture, and so much more. As I mentioned before, thanks to the IRA, the clean energy revolution has begun, and we are back on track to hit our national emissions reduction goals. And when you look at how this massive climate investment is structured, there's one aspect I want to emphasize for this group, that 2/3 of the IRA's resources run through the tax code. There are 25 different tax credits that cover a broad spectrum of the clean energy landscape. Many of these credits last for 10 years, giving strong policy certainty to both your private sector that you're dealing with, but now for the nonprofit and public sector to encourage all of these sectors to dramatically ramp up their clean energy investment and to be able to do so with some long-term planning. In that context, we come to direct pay, a powerful tool that, again, for the first time ever, brings these credits to local governments, state governments, schools, tribes, nonprofits, houses of worship, and so many more. These are the type of credits that the private sector has historically leveraged to great effect, and now you have the key to be able to unlock and do so as well. That means that tens of thousands of local governments in the U.S., more than 1,000 community colleges, 10,000 school districts, 2 million nationwide nonprofits are eligible to receive these credits, again, for the first time ever. What will be music to many of y'all's ears, especially as we're transitioning out of the competitive grant selections of the Inflation Reduction Act, is direct pay is not a competitive grant program. If you qualify for the credit, you get it. Direct pay works just like the name suggests. It's a direct check from the IRS to the entity that's applying. Doesn't run through the state, does not run through anybody else. And we're actually really grateful and excited that many folks that have filed for both 22 and 23 for some completed projects are actually starting to receive their physical checks back in the mail. We don't have quite the budget for the big check events quite yet, but we are really grateful and excited that those investments are taking place already. Each one of you has investments that will benefit from direct pay. A lot of the conversation that we like to have is we are turning the climate plans that each of you have into your capital plans and examining just across the board what you and local government are looking to do, again, over those next 10 years, and how can direct pay in the GGRF program provide an opportunity to help you with some of that funding. And there are exciting economic workforce opportunities that will come from these investments as well. So just as I close out briefly on direct pay, I do want to just end with a note that the innovative tool is here. It is for you, and there is no opportunity like the present to start getting organized around it. As we talk through the single largest grant program in the Inflation Reduction Act at $27 billion in the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, direct pay provides another opportunity for you all to make your money go even further. So with that, I'd love to turn back over to Jamie. I think we'll hang around for a few minutes for any questions or anything that I can be helpful with as well. But again, really grateful to be with you all today, and thank you so much for your continued leadership.
Thank you so much, John. Really excited to hear about all the different financing opportunities from the Inflation Reduction Act and how they can help propel our climate goals forward. And so now I'm pleased to introduce Zealand Hoover, who's the Senior Advisor to the EPA Administrator. Thank you so much for being here, Zealand, to talk to us more about where we are right now in the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Program and what mayors can expect.
Wonderful. Thank you for having me, Jamie, and thank you for putting together this series of conversations on the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. We are so thrilled to be advancing the program expeditiously. So we just passed a huge milestone. All $27 billion across those three competitions that Jamie introduced at the beginning have now been awarded to our partners. So we have 68 EPA grantees across those three programs. That's 60 grantees for the Solar for All program, 3 grantees for the National Clean Investment Fund, and 5 grantees for the Clean Communities Investment Accelerator. And so our partners have been gearing up for this moment throughout the year. They now actually have the ability to draw down funding and get to work. So we're seeing the work only continue to accelerate into the fall. We're excited by this spring to have tangible examples of the first projects underway. I'm going to just take a moment to provide a quick primer on the three programs, recognizing that you all are going to be going much deeper in sessions to come. So the first and easiest to understand is our $7 billion Solar for All program. This probably looks more familiar to programs you've seen previously from the federal government. It has a lot of similarities, for example, with our water infrastructure financing programs. We have provided grants covering all 50 states. In some cases, the grant is going to an entity that's covering an entire state or to a metro area within the state. Not all of our grantees are states. Some are cities. Some are nonprofits. We also have tribal grants, and we also have grants going to nonprofits covering multi-state regions. And so each of our partners is standing up their own solar program that has been tailored to reach low-income and disadvantaged communities to provide rooftop solar and associated storage in that geography. Because each of these projects has been tailored to fit the market needs of the region that you are in, there are some subtle and distinct nuances between each of them. So I would encourage each of you to identify who the Solar for All grantee is that's covering your city and plug in with them and figure out how you can stand to benefit as they start deploying funds. Second, we have our National Clean Investment Fund. This is 3 national grantees that will be providing a wide range of market development and financing support for low-income and disadvantaged communities. They also have about 50 to 60% of the funding is dedicated to low-income and disadvantaged communities. The other about 40% is flexible. The idea here is that these funds have to be used to do 3 things. 1, reduce greenhouse gas emissions and other air pollutants. 2nd, ensure that the benefits of those reductions go to low-income and disadvantaged communities. And 3rd, make sure that those investments are leveraging private sector dollars and are going after projects that would not otherwise be funded. And so we have some really fantastic partners that are looking at where there are currently financing gaps. The example I love to use is there is not a standardized rooftop solar loan product out there in most of the country. If you want to go put solar panels on your roof, you either need to take out a home equity line of credit, or you need to get some unsecured loan at some outrageous price point. Similarly, there's not easy financing for cities that are looking to do renewable energy and energy efficiency projects on your own owned property. And so we're excited for them to be addressing a number of those gaps, and they will be doing both direct financing, and they also have the ability to make investments in intermediaries that will then go do other financing work. The third bucket, the Clean Communities Investment Accelerator, these are essentially pass-through entities, and their entire reason for being is to help capitalize local financial institutions. So there are a number of fantastic institutions, credit unions, CDFIs, green banks with the infrastructure and expertise to do local clean energy investment, but they don't necessarily have the capital to do it. And so, or they've had the capital, but they haven't had the expertise. And so each of our grantees will be making multi-million-dollar grants to subrecipients, local financial institutions, to help jumpstart their ability to do that sort of lending. And we hope that this will create a whole ecosystem of financial products. And there's also a whole lot of collaboration between our CCIA and NCIF partners. And so we expect to get in a situation where you see a lot of products being financed by those local financial institutions, supported by secondary markets, underwriting standards, and other such things by those national grantees. So again, they are just now starting to draw down funding, which means that this fall is still a time of building and deploying, but we do expect to see the first projects start to get financed soon and a really significant ramp up in projects next year. So we look forward to going much deeper in the upcoming sessions. Happy to answer any quick questions that folks may have, but again, recognizing that we're going to go a lot deeper. So with that, Jamie, I'll pass it back over to you.
Thank you so much. I've only seen one question come in, so I'm going to just tell our attendees, if you want to ask a question, as Dylan or John, now's the time. The one question we got was about interest rates and what we're expecting to see here. Are we expecting low interest rates or 6 to 7% on these products?
So our grantees have a lot of flexibility to craft products that meet the needs of the market. It's important to note that these are nonprofit entities, and all income that comes into them from fees, interest, is program income that has to get recycled to provide more financing to more beneficiaries. So the interests are very aligned here of accelerating decarbonization and air pollution reduction, getting as much benefit as possible. It's up to our grantees to find that balance of the right interest rates to accelerate projects, expand their reach, ensure that they're able to make additional program income that will allow them to then go out and reach more projects. So we have been firm on expected outcomes and flexible on pathways to get there, and we'll be closely monitoring how this evolves in the months ahead, and engaging with our grantees as needed. But for right now, we're still in the early days, and there's going to be a wide range of different products on offer.
And I know that we're talking mostly about how municipalities and they can leverage the private sector. John, I wanted to see if you might also just be able to touch a moment on what do you want mayors to know or city leaders to know about how consumers can access some of the IRA benefits?
Thank you so much, Jamie. A terrific question. So I think this is an area that local governments can, again, play yet another leadership role in a significant way. We also, under the Inflation Reduction Act, have an opportunity for a consumer rebates program. This is run out of the Department of Energy. They are kind of run and set up via states. So right now, out of the State Energy Office, we have about an application in from 20 or so states to be able to have rebates set up for homeowners, actual consumers, your citizenry, to be able to access these rebates and have clean energy installation on things like appliances, but all the way up to furnaces and ways they heat and cool their home, upwards of multiple $1,000s. So it's a really exciting opportunity. Again, we're in several different stages. We just had a recent launch in the state of Arizona. That was quickly followed by the state of New Mexico launching their rebate programs. And we're expecting a real significant cadence over the next few months as more and more energy offices within the states are getting these stood up. But it's an opportunity, again, for that close collaboration with local governments, ensuring that not only their industry within the city, if there are businesses, there are huge rebates available not only under the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, the Consumer Rebates Program, and with direct pay to begin again thinking about their climate plans and how to turn those into their capital plans, be getting some significant funding for clean energy projects.
Thank you so much. And I include in the chat for all the cities, the Department of Energy is on a campaign to make sure that residents understand how to take advantage of these credits. So I included some messaging city leaders can use to promote these credits. And I'll also share, there's a calculator. I know I've used it to figure out what we could get back if we put solar on our house. And so it's really easy. It's, as John said, tailored by location because each state is handling this a little bit differently. Well, thank you so much, Zealand and John, for joining us. I'm going to turn it over to Lottie, but if you have time and you want to stay on, I know we'd always love that. I think we're going to turn now to really talking brass tacks. How should cities start approaching these opportunities? Which ones are best for your kinds of projects, and how do you wayfind in this space? So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Lottie.
All right, thank you, Jamie. So Zealand did a fantastic job of describing the purpose of the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. And the way that I think about this is that this Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund is where our mayoral priorities of affordable housing, economic development, and economic inclusion and climate all intersect. And it is one of the biggest direct spending program that's focusing specifically on low income and disadvantaged communities and addressing the fact that many of our communities have been shut out of climate ready housing or of reaping the benefits of climate projects in the past. And it takes a little bit of a different route from the tax incentives, direct pay, or the rebate programs that John Lucy was just referencing. And really trying to deliver community benefits through the lending markets. And so I just wanted to pick up on one thing, in case you had not heard or are not familiar with the low income and disadvantaged communities or LIDAC communities, those are really defined as either in the GGRF program as through the climate or environmental justice screening tools and maps, geographically dispersed low-income housing, or properties providing affordable housing. So that is how LIDAC communities are defined. You can go to the next slide, please. And the types of projects that are eligible and or really prioritized under this program are distributed generation and storage. So I saw the question in the chat earlier about utility scale solar projects. This is not that, it is more rooftop solar, community solar, and related storage projects. And then through the NCIF and CCIA programs, also net zero energy emissions buildings. So projects that support energy efficiency, electrification, or distributed generation or storage in buildings. And then zero emissions transportation. So EVs, infrastructure related to charging EVs or fleet electrification would be examples of eligible projects. So I want to give you kind of like the 101 on the GGRF programs. If you could go to the next slide, please. Again, Zealand did a great job of introducing these. The Solar for All program, which is focused on increasing deployment of residential solar, or so solar on residences or residential serving community solar in LIDAC communities. The governments and the nonprofit awardees of this program are going to provide grants, loans, and other financial assistance to residential projects or residential serving community solar projects with various allowable ownership structures for the solar as well. And they will support communities by providing some sort of technical assistance. This could be workforce development or project deployment support, like siting, permitting, or utility support. And they will be also addressing some of the regulatory barriers that exist across some of our states, whether that's at the state level, or they might be addressing, for example, policy around net metering. Then the CCIA program, the Clean Communities Investments Accelerator program, is really building out community lender capacity for clean energy lending. And the awardees are really networks of community lenders. They are delivering capital and technical assistance grants to community lenders. Those community lenders are probably important institutions in your communities. They may include community banks, minority depository institutions, credit unions, CDFIs, or some other local lender. And they, in turn, will issue loans to residents or businesses that they already do business with. So this program is really designed to, for example, make a home repair loan into a climate-ready home repair loan, or a construction loan or a mortgage into a green mortgage, by supporting decarbonization and the other climate technology strategies. So the idea is that technical assistance through this program is really focused on the lenders, and that might look like training on how to underwrite a building decarbonization project, or how to tap into qualified providers for solar installation. And then that third category, the National Clean Investment Fund, these are consortiums of mission-oriented lenders and their affiliates who are providing primary lending capital to their network. So as Zealand said, they can fund projects directly, or they can capitalize community lenders like green banks, or do things that leverage broader capital markets like the mortgage or municipal bond markets. And they're really intent on providing low-cost capital, and in some cases, pre-development loans in multiple market segments. So you can see that it's kind of a complex program. There's a lot of awardees here. It is not like an obvious pool of funds in the same way that direct pay here is for government-owned projects. And And that is really because the GGRF program implementers have primarily structured financing programs that are available to low-income and disadvantaged communities using the lending vehicles available to them. So I see two main ways for mayors and local governments to take advantage of the program. If you can go to the next slide, please. The first is for government projects. So a subset of programs include a structure that could finance government-owned projects. Some examples of these, if you can go to the next slide, are in the Solar for All pool of funds. A public housing solar project or a housing finance agency may access funds for a solar project. Or through the National Clean Investment Fund, a subsidized affordable housing provider, HFAs might take advantage of the NCIF awardee Climate United's products that they've already developed targeted at that segment, as an example of some projects there. And then the second way, if you can go to the next slide, please, that governments can ensure that the benefits of these funds flow to their communities are really focused on privately owned projects. And I see these as governments who might have projects or programs that are engaging the public directly. So if you're encouraging residents or local business adoption of solar, building improvements, or EVs, for example. If you are reaching low-income and disadvantaged communities with programs directly, or supporting community-owned resilient shelters or community solar in your communities, or building local capacity for climate projects through workforce training or market development programs. These are all ways that you can kind of, if you are doing one of these things, you can, the GGRF funds can really be of benefit to these members of their community. If you can go to the next slide, just the way that I think about publicly facing programs is you can click through the animation here, just like you want to have some kind of demand driver, at least a public awareness campaign, or engagement campaign, or maybe you have a policy which is requiring action in the private sector. And you want to have access to capital for the residents or businesses that are accessing or that are trying to do projects. And then you also want to know how to do a climate ready project and what to do about it. And GGRF is basically providing a sliver of the financial means, which can be layered on to the rebate programs that John was mentioning earlier at the state level, or other locally available incentives in order to ensure that projects happen on the ground. So what governments can do to raise awareness is just building a GGRF layer into your program, connect with the community lender, your community lenders, to ensure that they're aware of the awardee teams of GGRF and how they might be able to build climate lending into their existing business lines, or connecting affordable housing developers with the appropriate awardee teams to boost their ability to do climate projects, or CBOs. If you're working with community-based organizations that are focused on projects within your community, they may also be able to benefit from connections with the appropriate lenders. So all of the GGRF programs have some sort of pathways. You can go to the next slide for all of these different stakeholders in your community. So there's lots of opportunity for institutions in your community to take advantage of GGRF. So that's the 101 for you. And I'd be happy to take questions, but I would like to turn now to, we're really lucky to have two mayors with us today, Mayor Jacob Fry of Minneapolis and Mayor Malik Evans of Rochester, New York. So first of all, welcome and thank you for joining us today. I'm curious to hear from each of you what priorities in your city do you think that the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund may help you achieve?
I'll yield to my elder statesman, Mayor Fry. He can go first, or I can go if he's. I can start. So I mean, I think a couple of things. So we have a couple of things that we think this can help with and build upon things that we have already worked on. We have something called our Lexington Avenue 2 megawatt solar field. It's a project that was completed in 2017. It's been instrumental in helping us to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And the second part of the project is actually getting ready to deploy pretty soon. We completed, I think a couple of years ago, remediation of a portion of a former city-owned operated solid waste landfill. And that was in the northwest quadrant of our city. And upon cleanup of that site, it was delisted from in New York, the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, inactive hazardous waste disposal site registry, and was available for redevelopment. But there's geotechnical concerns that we have there, so the site was not suitable for construction, but was a great candidate for a solar field. So we put out an RFP to developers for that to become a solar field, and entered into a 25-year power purchase agreement with a solar developer. And they then constructed a solar field, and we continue to operate it. So the city purchases the power generated from the field, which is a remote net meter to our city hall and in our city's operation center. So we then receive monetary credits from the utility for those two city facilities, which are greater than the cost of the purchased solar power. So that's a huge win for us because number one, we reclaimed a hard to repurpose city brownfield. Anyone in urban environments know how hard brownfields are hard to reclaim. Number two, we didn't have to spend a dime on the construction or the continued operation of the solar field. And since it became operational, it has generated close to 18 million kilowatts of electricity and avoided about, I believe, 14,000 tons of greenhouse gas emissions. And lastly, but most importantly, as a former banker, we saved about $1.5 million in electricity costs. So the second portion of that site is almost ready for develop. So as you talk about these new programs that are coming online, there could be an opportunity for that. And our remediation efforts are nearing completion with the potentiality of adding 2 to 3 megawatts of solar energy. So we are very interested in using the site for community solar, specifically for low-income residents. And we'll be putting out an RFP and encourage developers to take advantage of the GGRF programs to finance this project. So we're looking forward at ways to have city residents hired for the construction of the solar field to further train and grow our clean energy workforce.
Great. And now that we've figured out the mute button, Lottie, thank you so much for having us. Mayor Evans, really good to see you, my friend. You're really doing some inspiring work, and proud to work alongside you. And it really is inspiring to see so many passionate climate leaders that are here with us today. And I'm so grateful for the Council of Mayors to discuss some of the climate efforts that we've got going here in Minneapolis and the work that we can expand with the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund and how it really supports city goals. We know that climate change is affecting us in every corner of our country. And you know, as of a few years ago, a statistic that many people don't realize is that Minneapolis was the city's second most impacted by climate change in the entire country. A few years ago, number one was New Orleans. Number two was Minneapolis. Number three, by the way, was also in Minnesota. I believe it was Mankato. And the primary reason is that we're seeing thaw cycles, freeze and thaw cycles that are drastically different than ever before. It's impacting our sewer system like never before. It's impacting how we plow the streets. And then ultimately, it's impacting our city taxpayers' bottom lines. And so when we talk about the social cost of carbon in Minneapolis, and I know in many cities throughout the country, we feel that cost very directly, and we're now calculating for it in decisions that we're making. And so the truth is that we can't wait. Every sector, every level of government needs to be investing in protecting our climate and doing the right thing for it. And so we've been establishing some very aggressive goals. I'm not going to go on too long into them because I know that there's several questions that'll probably touch on them. One, I'll talk just briefly about Climate Legacy Initiative, that this work through GGRF could potentially expand. Our Climate Legacy Initiative taps into about $10 million annually. Not one time, every year, that we voted to get out of our franchise fee. So the franchise fee that we have with our local utilities transferred directly into doing climate-specific work. And whether that's weatherization of homes or reducing the per capita carbon footprint, whether that's putting in boilers or making sure that we're expanding the number of electrical charging stations through the city, this is work that can be expanded with money. You know, a lot of people will say, well, this is not a problem that can be solved with money. But, well, you know, let's be real. This is a problem where money really helps. To have the necessary funding in place for us to do progressive, forward-thinking work, it makes a big difference. And so with the work that we've already got underway, we've saved residents and businesses about $160 million in energy costs since 2018. We are incentivizing businesses that have previously done some of this pollution with like a fee to say for every pound of emission that you emit into the atmosphere, you're charged a fee, not a tax. And then that money can be poured back into doing more sustainable work. So not only are they reducing their carbon output because they're incentivized to do so, we can make it exponentially better because we're investing that money back into the system. We've doubled the number of trees we've been planting. And I love doing that simply because it's offensive work that we can do. So often we talk about like doing less of something when you talk about improving the climate. This is an area where we can do more of something and get excited about it. We're meeting our city's 100% renewable goals by making sure that our public buildings are up to par, and we're expanding that to private buildings as well by 2030. I mentioned expanding electrical vehicle charging stations, and we've also made sure that we're reducing carbon footprint while providing residents with cleaner transportation options through public transit as well. So those are just a few of the things that we're working really hard on. And moving forward, we need to focus on really 3 key strategies, which is strategically utilizing GGRF for transformative change, prioritizing equity and climate justice initiative, and then making some real strategic investments that align with our climate goals. So I'm just pumped to be here with all of you. I'm pumped to be here with Mayor Evans, and happy to continue the work together.
Fantastic. You're just starting to touch on something I wanted to ask you all, which are, what are the ways that your greenhouse gas reduction efforts are really focusing on environmental justice? How are you incorporating environmental justice into your plans?
Well, you know, you heard Mayor Fry talk about something I'm very passionate about as well. And I always say I want to be the Johnny Appleseed of mayors. And, you know, we had a tree planting initiative that we had, and we were short. We used federal resources to do it, but we wanted to get 6,000 new trees planted by the end of 2025, and we're going to be able to do that. So that's part of environmental justice. And we looked at the tree canopy in our city. In the 4 quadrants we saw in our poorest, most impoverished neighborhoods is where the tree canopy was the worst. So we prioritized those areas to plant those 6,000 trees. And then the other thing is affordable housing is important for us, and sustainability. We're looking at utilizing all electric heating and cooling in those new houses. Highly energy efficient construction, and also access to EV charging stations. And we encourage adding solar where it's possible. So we're excited that the GGRF program will provide access to capital and make even more of these projects possible, hopefully. And future solar projects created by the city will directly benefit low-income residents by providing access to renewable energy and hopefully reducing their utility bills. I think another added benefit to these housing projects as we look at, you know, this environmental justice is utilizing all electric heating and cooling, and increase adoption of electric vehicles by providing charging stations is a positive health impact. It will improve air quality in and out of our homes. I know a lot of folks will say, oh, this seems pie in the sky and difficult to do. But I think in Rochester, we've shown if you focus on it, you can do it. And you also can bring people into the conversation who necessarily have not been a part of the conversation. Those are a lot of our low income residents, because they're like, you come to talk to me about this stuff, Mayor, about electric heating when I'm trying to worry about my meal or, you know, what school my kids are going to go to. So if we make it easier for them, they see that they should be a part of the conversation, because they are the ones who are disproportionately not benefiting or rearing or receiving the negative effects of greenhouse gas emissions and other things. So those are just some of the things that we're looking at as we look to continue down this journey.
There's a saying that good mayors copy and great mayors steal. And Mayor Evans, I got to tell you, I'm going to steal that Johnny Appleseed line. Maybe I'll give you credit for it, maybe I won't, but that is fabulous. I mean, ditto on everything that Mayor Evans just stated. He's dead on right. And what we are trying to do in Minneapolis is allocate 60% at least of our funding to neighborhoods that have been historically left out. And we have them set up largely through what's called a green zones initiative. We've established green zones throughout the city based on areas that have a cross-section of poverty and pollution. And those areas are not that hard to find the cross-section, because if you found, sadly and tragically, if you find an area with poverty, you probably have some pollution there. And if you have an area that is pollution, historically, you probably have poverty there. And so that those cross-section are prevalent. And so we're really prioritizing these green zones. And then, you know, in addition to that, Minneapolis environmental justice communities have historically been redline communities. There's been some very intentional disinvestment from them. And so when we talk about allocating portions of that $10 million that we are getting ongoing from the franchise fee, from the utilities, the first priority is green zones. And I'll give you just one example of how we're rolling this out. Ultimately, this is taking some work, but we're looking to institute this block by block initiative where we are going in like a SWAT team and helping to provide weatherization of each block. So we go in and, you know, granted, we got to do so, you know, under the law, you're not able to like just go into somebody's home and give them a boiler. But the goal would be to almost have it be an opt-out system, so that you get the service. We weatherize the home. We make it more resilient. We seal up the windows. We make sure that the doors have proper sealant, so that at the end of the day, they're using less energy. The carbon output goes down. And hopefully they're also saving on their individual utility bills as well. And if it's a neighborhood that is, you know, an ACP 50 area, chances are they don't have a lot of money to spare. So this is good on all levels. And if we can go kind of block by block over in some of these green zoned areas, I think we can do a lot of benefit. And so, you know, that's just one example of how we're really focusing on, you know, areas that are green zones. And we're also looking at it in terms of the workforce as well, because as you establish these new sectors of employment, we want to make sure that the people in our city that have historically been left out are brought in. We want to make sure that they've got opportunities to get a good job installing solar. We want to make sure that entrepreneurs, especially of color, have opportunity to run and own those businesses as well. And so when you look at how our funding goes, it's matching the rhetoric that we're pumping out. And hopefully we'll make some good progress there.
I really appreciate you sharing the example of green zones and also mentioning the small business community, and particularly businesses owned by people of color. Those are, there may be opportunities for those businesses to increase, to access lending through GGRF and to increase their businesses through GGRF. So a great connection there. And particularly if they are businesses that are serving weatherization projects, for example. You can connect the dots and put on a GGRF layer to the existing green zone and block by block program. So if you have, for all the rest of you listening out there, if you have programs similar to what Mayor Fry was just describing, a great way to add a GGRF layer to bring additional funding into your community. I'm curious, Mayor Evans, as a former banker, how are you seeing opportunities for your community lenders within GGRF?
Well, I think one of the things that we have to do, number one, is make them aware that it's something that exists, is important, and then showing that there is a cost-benefit analysis for them to participate in these type of programs. Both because I think sometimes we divorce environmental justice, the environmental change from economic development, but they really go together. They really go together from a workforce development standpoint in terms of getting people to work in this field, and from people who might want to finance some of these projects. You can get a return on investment. I remember one of the last things I did in my banking career was working on a geothermal project. And that was before geothermal became something that was in the regular lexicon of conversation. So I think that that's something that we have to do is let folks know that this is out there. I think that there is lots of interest in this space, but I think you don't know what you don't know. And as you said at the top of the Zoom, a lot of the acronyms, a lot of the letters, people don't understand and don't know what's out there. And this is why I am so glad so many people are on this hub, because they need to understand that these projects, these programs, these government programs are out there, but also there's a lot of folks in the private sector that are also interested in there. So we've tried to create a table through our climate action plan goals within the city, but also our community action plan goals to bring in the different sectors of the community to try to come together to talk about these issues.
Perfect. True community action. I love that. I see there are some questions for you all in the chat. For Mayor Fry, how are you currently financing the housing program that you talked about earlier? The weatherization upgrades in green zones.
Great question. And this is a nice segue for us also to ask for support, generally speaking, from the GGRF. So we're funding it through largely our Climate Legacy Initiative. So the Climate Legacy Initiative was set up not all that long ago. And that is an initiative that we're trying to create a long-term legacy around the policy decisions we're making to reduce carbon output and to save the planet. And to do so, we've got a funding stream which comes from the franchise fee. So in the past, we've taken in a franchise fee from the utilities, and some of it would go to driving down the levee. Maybe we would use some of it for, I don't know, plowing the streets. Maybe some of it would go to some housing work. But we made a really intentional decision to keep that money to do climate work. Not to undermine all of the other important initiatives that we've got going on, but we wanted to have this direct correlation between that franchise fee and the work for sustainability. And so now what we've been doing since the Climate Legacy Initiative got approved through the City Council is building out the team. So to get a block weatherized, you got to have the people that are doing the policy. You've got to administer contracts. You've got to work, and you should be working with the unions. So you've got a partnership where you've got a whole crew of people that go into a specific area and provide weatherization for people who need it. And so we're in the process right now of building out the army that then this next year, once we get the funds from GGRF, are going to be able to go out and fight for our planet. So the work of GGRF is really one that can bolster the work that's underway, can expedite some of the policies that we've got in place, and make it a situation where 2 + 2 = 6.
Love that. 2 + 2 = 6. That is fantastic. Wonderful. Well, I understand we are going to have a poll, so want to make sure that we have time to bring that up. If anybody else has questions for our mayors here, please take the opportunity to ask them now. All right, I'm going to ask our mayors to just leave us with their thoughts on, like, what are you most excited about in terms of the next couple of years of work and the opportunity for your communities in the climate and economic development space.
I could jump off and pass it to you, Mayor Evans.
Yeah, sure.
You've been thinking on your feet fast here, and I've had a little more opportunity. So I'll jump in here first. The excitement that I feel is around sort of a galvanization of effort. Less and less are we responding to the need because it's so damn apparent. Just go outside. I mean, is Minneapolis right now? We're not necessarily known for being a hot climate. It's hot as hell out there. And there are dramatic differences in our weather patterns and the way that we're experiencing the planet. I'm excited about biochar. That is a big thing that I'm excited about coming up here, which I did not talk about before, which is kind of a carbon sequestration mechanism where you can literally take carbon out of the atmosphere and through a biochar effort planted in the ground. And again, that's some of the affirmative work that we can do where it doesn't feel like we're just playing defense constantly. We're going on offense, and that's what we want to use these funds for. And I'm excited about the team that we're building out collectively, not just in Minneapolis, but with, the mayors of Rochester, New York, the mayors of cities around the country that are ready to step up.
Yeah, and I agree, and I'm excited about mayors being on the front lines of a lot of these climate conversations. We know how hard it is at the national level. There's a joke that mayors GSD, because it's 255, I'll say the S as stuff, but mayors know how to get stuff done. So mayors are really on the vanguard in terms of advancing a lot of the climate goals that we talk about. And then what I've been excited about is taking plans that we have, our climate adaptation plan, our community solar initiatives, and actually bringing people to the conversation that necessarily would not have cared about or prioritized these things before, because it was just nebulous concepts that seem so far away. But when it's hot as heck, as Mayor Fry said, or when you see these natural disasters that are taking place, everyone is starting to say, all right, we can argue about climate change and all these other things if we want to, but really we need to start having some action around things that you can do in cities. And I think cities are being very, very involved in these conversations. And then to have these government programs that are being rolled out that support this, I think are important. And I just hope that these pots of money and these investments will continue to be here for us, because I think that has allowed cities to be able to really be involved in bringing about the change that we want to see. In our city, we've allowed residents to choose a mix of electricity types, with the default choice being renewables. So I'm excited about that continuing. And then I'm excited about further being able to put out goals to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. We're close to 50,000 tons. We want to be able to do any more and report that out to the community. So I'm extremely excited about it, and also the continued collaboration with organizations like Bloomberg, U.S. Conference of Mayors, and my mayor colleagues like Mayor Fry, as we continue to go forward to address this pressing problem that's one of the most pressing in our generation.
Well, Mayor Evans and Mayor Fry, thank you so much for sharing your very specific examples of climate leadership. And thank you for all of the work that you're doing to prepare your communities and to make them climate ready. Jamie, over to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Lottie. Thank you, Mayors Fry and Evans, for sharing what you're doing in Minneapolis and Rochester. It's really inspiring work, and I know that these funds are going to help catapult it even further. And I'm so glad to hear Mayor Fry talk about biochar. It's something we've been supporting, some replication efforts. And so I put a resource in the chat for those who might be interested in doing work and stealing some biochar ideas. Want to quickly, please don't jump off yet. Two highlights. One, and I put in the chat before, we are still enrolling cities in our latest round of grant assistance boot camps, where you can get experts like Lottie and others helping you to apply for competitive federal funding and to fill out the paperwork that's involved in getting cash back through direct pay. You heard John talk about it earlier. This is not competitive money. If you have done one of the kinds of projects that are eligible for direct pay, you will get money back. But it's a little complicated. And so please do sign up. If you're a city under 150,000 residents, you can do all of these. If you're a larger city, because it's not competitive, the Cashback Bootcamp is open to you. If you have any questions, please do reach out, because we're starting the bootcamps this week, so I don't want you to miss out on too much of the programming. We also have 2 webinars coming up. One next week. Anyone who's been listening to me for the last 3 years knows I'm a broken drum on the American Rescue Plan Act money. This is direct money to cities, the thing we all want. And we want to make sure that you are staying in compliance with the Treasury guidelines around obligating it. We're going to be specifically discussing on this webinar with our Treasury friends how you can use the money for revenue replacement and what does interagency agreements look like. It's complicated stuff. We want to make sure you get it right. You don't send 1 cent back to the federal government, and the Congress and the public see the value of these dollars. So please do join us. Put a link in the chat to register. And the other one is something I'm super duper excited about. We are calling on some of our AI experts to help you understand what are the good ways to be using AI to help you with writing your grant applications, and what are the bad ways to do that. We're going to do live demos. What does a prompt look like that helps you break down a NOFO? What kinds of data can you throw into AI and have it digest and help you write your narrative? So please make sure that the right person in your staff is signing up for that. I learned a ton in prep for it yesterday. I hope you all will too. It's open up into all city employees. And just please keep checking out our calendar. We'll be adding the other sessions of the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund series and making sure that you are prepared for all of the changes that might come with this election cycle. We know that we're going to have a new administration in January. We're going to make sure you're well prepared to continue tapping federal money with any changes that happen. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you to all of our presenters, and we will see you next time.